In the last video, we pulled the cover off how tool brands really disappear. The badge is still there. The shelf is still there. But the confidence underneath it is already dead. And the comments backed that up harder than any ad ever could. One viewer said his old Porter cable tools still work, but the real decision is batteries now. Another said what a lot of people are finally saying out loud. If they are all coming from the same place, why keep paying extra just to feel patriotic in the aisle? That is not just frustration, that is a buying rebellion. Owners are done getting trapped in fading systems and dealer-fed nostalgia. So today, we are breaking down the so-called American tool brands people are quietly walking away from, and the real reasons those names are starting to feel extinct before the shelf is even empty. Number 8. Skil. At first glance, Skil looks like the kind of brand that should be easy to trust. The company still has a real cordless system, not some token lineup. Its own site shows about 100 products in the 20-volt maximum power core range, plus separate 12-volt and 40-volt families. And it pushes a 5-year warranty as a confidence play. So this is not a ghost brand. On paper, it is active, but this brand has a very specific weakness. It lives where buyers want the least drama possible. The person buying in this lane usually wants a drill, a charger, a spare battery, maybe a blower later. And then he wants to stop thinking about it. That is why the battery recall on a 5.0 amp-hour pack in December 2024 matters more here than it would at the high end. Even one safety scare hits harder when the whole promise is supposed to be simple, safe, and easy. That is the real problem. This brand is not dying from lack of products. It is getting squeezed because entry-level buyers are impatient, crowded by options, and quick to walk once trust gets even a little complicated. The practical move is to buy this as a light-duty value play, only when the exact tool is a clear deal that day. What you do not do is make it the center of your whole garage and hope the rest sorts itself out. And when the brand is older than the confidence behind it, the weakness looks very different. Number 7. Crescent. This one still benefits from one thing a lot of brands would love to have. The name rings a bell fast. In fact, the company's own brand story still leads with the original adjustable wrench and the way that single tool made the name famous more than a century ago. That tells you something right away. The clearest part of the brand is still the old story, not the modern direction. And that old story is useful because this is not a battery platform problem. It is a hand tool identity problem. The brand now stretches across pliers, ratcheting wrenches, screwdrivers, and tool sets. But when people hear the name, many still picture one classic shape first. That gap matters. When a brand's history is sharper than its current lane, buyers start using it as a fill-in brand instead of a destination brand. You can feel it in the way people shop it. They grab one wrench because they know the name. They toss in a tool set if the price seems fair. But they do not always treat it like the brand they are building their whole drawer around. The smarter move is simple. Buy it one tool at a time, where the shape, finish, and price make sense in your hand. Just stop assuming. The old reputation answers the whole question for you. The next one is not really about the tool at all. It is about how many people are comfortable tying their future to one store. Number 6. Kobalt. On the surface, Kobalt can look like a smart system hiding in plain sight. Lowe's says the 24-volt maximum platform now covers more than 75 tools. And that matters because it proves the line is not tiny or forgotten. If a buyer walks in and sees drills, saws, lights, outdoor gear, batteries, and combo kits all under one color, it can feel like a settled system. But that same proof creates the real issue. The whole thing still depends on one retailer. That means the value is real, but the independence is not. When a buyer locks into a battery line, he is really choosing where future purchases happen, where support happens, and where the missing piece has to be found later. For some people, that is fine. For others, who hate getting boxed in, it feels like giving one store too much control over the whole setup. That is why this one gets treated differently from a fully open platform. People will gladly buy one Kobalt tool on sale. They will buy a blower or impact driver when the value looks obvious. But a lot fewer will build their entire shop around it with no backup plan. The practical move is to keep this brand on a short leash. Then, you get to the one name that hurts the most, because it used to settle the argument before it started. Number 5. Craftsman. There was a time when this brand did not need much explanation. If you were unsure, you bought it anyway, because the name itself felt steady. That is what makes the current version so tricky. The brand is not asleep. It won 7 Pro Tool Innovation Awards in 2024, added more V20 brushless RP tools that same year, and still gets major marketing support under Stanley Black and Decker. So this is not a dead brand by any fair reading. The problem is that the signal is mixed. Years ago, Stanley Black and Decker said the relaunch would start with roughly 30% of tools made in the United States, with global materials and aim higher over time. Today, the company's United States manufacturing page still highlights specific Craftsman items like tape measures made in Sedalia, Missouri. That is a real signal, but it also shows how easy it is for buyers to overread the badge. They hear the old American story, then land in a mixed modern lineup with different origins, different tiers, and different expectations under one name. That is why this one no longer works as a blind buy. The next brand shows how even a respected tool can cool off once people stop seeing it as home base. Number 4. GearWrench. In the drawer, GearWrench can still feel more convincing than the story around it. The brand's own material says the line now includes more than 2,500 stock-keeping units and over 600 automotive specialty tools. That is a serious mechanic-focused range, not a sleepy little catalog. So the issue here is not lack of scope. It is that the business story around the brand started getting louder than buyers wanted. Over the past year, Apex Tool Group, the parent company behind GearWrench and Crescent, went through debt and ownership headlines that ended with lenders taking control and later refinancing moves aimed at improving liquidity. Even buyers who do not read credit reports still feel the shadow of that kind of news. They hear less about momentum and more about stability. That changes how people commit, and that is exactly what happened. This brand still makes sense as a piece brand, but that is not the same thing as being the brand people confidently build an entire long-term wall around. What comes next is quieter, and that is exactly why it is dangerous. Number 3. Porter Cable. Over the years, Porter Cable did not disappear all at once, so much as fade out of the main conversation. Even now, its own site shows 147 power tools, and still calls the 20-volt maximum system growing. That sounds reassuring at first, but then you look closer, and the homepage still leans heavily on older anchors like routers, a pancake compressor, a chop saw, and other long, familiar corded staples. That mix tells its own story. This is not really a collapse. It is a drift problem. The brand still has products. The tools can still work, but the future does not hit you in the face. In cordless tools, that matters because people do not buy one drill anymore and stop there. They buy into a path. They want to see that the next saw, the next light, the next battery, and the next wave of tools will still feel worth joining. That is why current owners may be perfectly fine while new buyers keep walking. The smarter move here is very clear. If you already own the platform and it is doing what you need, use it. If you are starting fresh, choose the platform that looks hungry, visible, and actively expanding, rather than one that feels like it is living off yesterday's shelf space. Now, the risk shifts from broad platforms to specialist tools, where one missing part can ruin the whole purchase. Number 2. Triton. In a narrower lane, Triton shows how fast a specialist brand can feel risky when support gets shaky. Tool streams collapse, put real pressure on the Triton brand. When Toolstream and Group Silverline entered administration in December 2025. That was the kind of event niche buyers fear, because specialist tools depend heavily on spares, accessories, and a stable support pipe. But Triton also shows what rescue looks like. Its current site says the brand is now owned and managed by Timbicon, still offers a 3-year guarantee, and still points buyers to registration, claims, stockists, and spares. In other words, the brand got pulled back from the edge rather than simply sliding off it. That is good news for owners, but it is also the proof point. A specialist line can look healthy right up until the business around it cracks. That is the practical lesson here. Buy specialist brands only when the tool solves a very specific problem, and the key extras are easy to see, easy to order, and easy to replace. In this category, the part after the purchase matters almost as much as the tool itself, and then you get to the clearest warning sign on the list, because here, the instability is not a rumor. It is sitting right on the front page. Number 1, Silverline. This is what the Brink looks like without the drama. If you open the Silverline website today, the first thing staring back is an administrator notice saying joint administrators were appointed to Group Silverline Limited and Toolstream Limited on December 11th, 2025. At that point, we are not talking about a vague feeling in the aisle anymore. The instability is public, official, and impossible to dress up. That matters even more because this is a value brand. Budget buyers can forgive a basic finish, a rougher case, or a handle that feels a little cheaper if the price is honest and the replacement path is easy. What they do not forgive is uncertainty. They do not want the next clamp, accessory, or matching hand tool to turn into a hunt across half-dead listings and thin stock. That is how this ends for a lot of old-name tool brands. Not with one big collapse, but with buyers quietly walking past them. The label still sounds familiar. The flag still gets printed on the box, but the system behind it no longer feels worth trusting. And once that confidence is gone, the brand is already in trouble, whether the shelf looks full or not. More breakdowns like this are coming. So if you want the real story behind the names, subscribe and stay close, because this fight is getting bigger.